It's very odd to me that in a year where Sekiro Shadows Die Twice came out, I'm not entirely sure that's going to end up becoming my favorite game about a ninja who continuously dies over and over again as part of the plot for 2019. That's a sentence I wasn't expecting to say, but I just got done playing through Katana Zero, so we're gonna do a real quick review of it. Katana Zero is the newest game from Devolver Digital, and I first saw this a few months ago when it was shown off at the Nindy Showcase, and after playing through this, I'm not entirely sure that Nintendo should have stopped to spotlight this thing, because I know that Nintendo is trying to get away from their family-friendly name. They're trying to show, hey, we can show off everything, but this is one of the biggest mind F's I've played all year. This game, it's almost like if Sekiro was made by Hideo Kojima, and he decided to incorporate in there a bunch of the ideas that he had left over from PT. This game, it really is almost like Ninja Gaiden meets Eternal Darkness. Because, yes, what this game is about is that you play as Zero, this assassin who has to go from one target to the next, taking them out. And I saw this was from Devolver Digital, and I thought, okay, they're not just going to make a game where you're just an assassin moving from left to right, taking people out. They're going to put in there something weird. And I saw in that Nindy Showcase that every single day you have to go and talk to a therapist. I thought, okay, that's the weird thing. It's a weird, quirky thing. It's going to be some light, quirky humor in here. Devolver Digital, they're known for stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, there is some good, quirky humor in here. There is a running gag about Strong Terry, this one random goon you have to take out. The joke goes on from one level on to the next, and I laughed hysterically at that. The sense of humor in here is great, but it's stunning that in a game that is this dark, they still had that kind of a sense of humor in here. Because yes, an assassin who has to go and talk to a therapist every single day, that's weird in the way that Devolver Digital would make one of their games weird. But it goes so far from there. Because after your first session with the therapist, he gives you this drug. He says, it's your medicine, don't worry, you're just gonna take your medication. And whenever you go out on one of these missions, you have the ability to see what's going to happen in the future, and you have to map out how you want to get through this level. They say that you have precognition, so basically you have to play through this level and you can't get hit once. If you get hit once, you instantly die. So you have to make your way through all these different goons from one stage onto the next without getting hit once. But if you do die, you just zip right back to the start of the level, and then you go, no, that wouldn't work, and then you have to go through that level again. And it became real obvious to me really quick. Okay, the drugs that he's giving me, it's not medication. That's tied into this precognition that I have. The reason why I can see into the future is because of the quote-unquote medicine that the therapist keeps giving me. Alright, that's pretty obvious that's going to be what the twist is. And I was half right, but the other half that I didn't get right is where this game becomes something completely different. Just something so out of left field. Like I said, you gain certain abilities from these drugs, but that doesn't necessarily sound like it's going to have a good ending to it. You can see many ways that that could go wrong, and it goes very wrong throughout the course of this game. Eventually, the visions of the future that you start having, the visions of how things are going to play out, they start to get jumbled up. It's like watching cable channels that are getting scrambled together, which is a reference that nobody under the age of 20 is going to understand. But yeah, you'll start to see like weird flickers, and you'll see random things that maybe it's happening, maybe it already happened, and you just don't remember it. Because that's another thing, you have amnesia, so you keep getting these flashes of stuff that happened to you in the past, but I don't know, did it really happen to you in the past? Is this just some weird trip that you're on? Is it a vision of the future? You don't know how time is even working in this thing. And it really does start to turn into some Eternal Darkness PT stuff. This almost becomes a horror game halfway through it. And you guys know me, I do enjoy horror games, but I've never really played a horror game that had so many other elements in there. Like I mentioned earlier on, this also has like a splash of Hideo Kojima Metal Gear stuff in there, because you know that you were in some war. That's really the only memory that you have from your past, and you see a lot of other people in the city suffering from the effects of this war. And it becomes really clear that all this is a big metaphor for the Vietnam War. Like, they don't even really try and hide it later on. This is set in some fictional city. The rules of this city are different. The history of this city is different. But it becomes really clear, yeah, we're making this all a big metaphor for an actual war that really happened. So you've now got this real-world commentary element in there. You've got the quirky humor in there. You've got this weird, jumbled up, am I going insane horror element in there. And you've also got incredibly quick, rapid action gameplay in there. This sounds like so many different styles of a video game, but they all blend together perfectly in this. It is stunning how they took so many different ideas and actually made them work in this game. I was constantly stunned by either the horror elements appearing out of nowhere, or by the insanely quick action sequences that I had to pull off, or just from the life of Zero. Just watching his day-to-day stuff where he was talking to people, where he was interacting with his neighbors, and you just knew something was going to go down with this. There's this little neighbor girl that gets introduced early on, and the second she pops up, you're like, oh, horrible things are going to happen here. Just absolutely awful things. And they end up developing kind of this Leon the Professional style relationship where it's this cold-blooded assassin, but he's got this little girl that he actually cares about and actually wants to protect. And at first they don't really get along, but then she starts looking up to him and idolizing him. It doesn't get as creepy as Leon the Professional. Instead, it keeps everything at a very wholesome level in here. And I just played through this entire game going, please let everything work out for Zero. Please let everything work out for Zero. But there comes that moment where you learn more about what these drugs are doing to him and about his past, and you realize I don't think that there is any way this is going to work out for anyone in here. But I've mostly been talking about the tone, I've been talking about the presentation, I've been talking about where this story goes. I haven't really talked about the gameplay. As I said, you have to go from the start of a stage to the end of the stage without getting hit once, and you basically just flash back over and over again every single time that you die. And this game basically turns you into a speedrunner. That's what this is, because you can't just go through the level and just stop and think to yourself, okay, I'm just gonna wait here for the perfect moment. Just wait until everything is fine, because there's also a timer at the top of every stage. You can't just sit there and take your time on every single level. There were a couple of times in which I did take my time, and then I was racing towards the end of that level as the screen was going blurry and time was starting to run out, and sometimes I made it, sometimes I didn't. You do have to learn how to basically just go through this entire stage in one quick, rapid motion. However, you do have the ability to slow down time, which is great because, as I said, you can't take a single hit, and there are guys with guns, and all you have is a sword, but if you slow down time at the right moment, you can hit that bullet right back at them. In fact, if your timing is really good, you can hit the bullet back at them even without slowing down time. There were times in which I ran out of the ability to slow down time because it is a limited amount on every single stage. You can't just go through the entire stage on slowdown mode. So there were times in which I would go into a hail of gunfire, I couldn't slow anything down, and somehow I survived it all. I just dodged and reflected all the bullets at the perfect timing. I just kind of had that look on my face like, yeah, I planned that. I totally planned all that. But the truth of the matter is, this game, after you have played it a certain amount of time, you do start to understand the flow of it. You do start to understand, here's where you roll, here's where you reflect, here's where you jump. And in that way, it is kind of like Sekiro, because when I reviewed that game, I said, yes, it's very hard in the beginning, but as you go along, you do start to understand when you should parry, when you should roll out of the way, when you should jump. You start to understand all of that. However, there were still those times in Sekiro where the framing would be so frame perfect, I would stop and think to myself, okay, I swear I did that correct. I swear I did that correct. Is the game just bugged, or is the timing that precise on this? In this one, the timing is 100% incredibly precise. You have to know exactly when to do everything, but I never once questioned it. I never once said, I thought I did that exactly right. Every time that I died, which was a lot in this game, I would always stop and go, I know exactly what I did wrong. I know that it was on me, it's not on the game. I know that I was the one that screwed that up. Now, as far as negatives for this game go, when it comes to the gameplay, no, it's perfect. The gameplay is 100% amazing in here. However, when it comes to the story, as much as I absolutely loved it, there comes a moment in the story where these two mystery figures appear to you and they basically say, hey, you're gonna have a choice. Do this or do that. And then later on, they appear and go, all right, this is that moment. Do this, do that. And they basically say, hey, if you choose A, your story continues. If you choose B, your story ends, but X, Y, and Z will end up happening. And I thought, all right, you know, this game, it's pretty clever with how it lays some stuff out. So I'm gonna choose B, because B sounds like it might be the bad path for me, but it'll be a good thing for other people, so that might come around in the end and do all these things. And if you choose B, the game literally just ends there. Credits, that's it. And I felt kind of cheated by that, because they told me, okay, if you choose B, your story ends, but X, Y, and Z will happen. And I thought, okay, well, show me X, Y, and Z. Show me why I should pick this thing. Don't just tell me, oh, don't worry, that stuff happens. No. Show me. Show me why my choice in here matters. Give me some kind of an emotional impact from that, and they don't. And if they don't give you anything for choosing that, then there's literally no reason at all to choose B. And you can instantly go back to that moment and just choose A. So yeah, there is literally no reason at all to choose B in there, so that kind of seemed unimportant. And also, man, this is not a spoiler, but I will just say, this game has a to be continued. And I don't mean it's got sequel bait. I don't mean it's like, okay, main story is done, and now there's a little hint of a thing that could come later. No, I mean, the main story does not end in this at all. It doesn't even get close to ending in this. In this game, there are several big badasses that you meet and you start to learn about, and you know, oh, I'm gonna have to go up against each of them. You don't. You do not go up against any of those people in here. And there's a moment like right at the end in which you think to yourself, okay, well, that's gonna be the final mission. Okay, that's it. You've set up all this stuff, that's gonna be the final mission. I'm charging in to do that final mission right now. No, it isn't. Because then you just get credits. That's all for the sequel. Yeah, I don't want to say it's really bad that they did that, because this game is like $15 and it's worth $15. What you get here is 100% worth $15. But oh yeah, that kind of just left me feeling a little bit empty there at the end. I did not feel satisfied with how this thing ended. Like, if you're going to give me a to be continued, you gotta make sure that I'm satisfied with storyline A before I want to continue on storyline B. And yeah, they just don't even wrap up storyline A. It's kind of upsetting. Although I will say, boy, the cojones on these guys coming in here and just naturally assuming they're going to get a sequel on this one. Ooh boy, it is really shocking to me that they would come in here and be so 100% certain they were going to get a sequel on this, that they were 100% confident in not answering any of your questions. Okay, they do answer like 2 questions, but you have like 12. So yeah, I needed a few more answered in there. It's really shocking, honestly, that they decided to end it that way, and I was not a fan. I'm okay with them saving some stuff for a sequel. I'm okay with them sequel baiting, but man, it literally is like the movie just ended at the end of the 2nd act. There is no 3rd act to this thing. It's really kind of upsetting to me. However, the gameplay is so good, the presentation is so good, and what story is in here, it is still very rich. It is still very fleshed out. It is still very intriguing. It is a story that you want to go through. It is a character that you want to learn more about. It is a game that you really do want to play. So I still have to give this thing a 9 out of 10. And yes, I am aware that we are not even halfway through the year yet, and yet I have already given out more 9 out of 10s this year than I did in all of last year. This has been the year of 9 out of 10 games. I haven't had any 10 out of 10s yet, but goddamn, this has still been an amazing year for video games so far. But thank you guys very much for tuning in. We are going to start doing more of these quick reviews. Don't worry for the really big releases out there. We're still going to do the regular reviews where we have a skit and it goes on much longer than this. But we are at a moment right now where there are so many games that I want to talk about. And yeah, I just don't have time to do a script and a skit and a 30-minute video for every single one of them. So you are going to see a lot more mini reviews coming up. But let me know what you thought about Katana Zero down below. It's available on Steam. It's available on the Switch. Go and check this thing out. I freaking loved it. And please support it, because if there is not a sequel to this, I will be enraged. Okay, I'll actually just be very disappointed and will probably just write my own Katana Zero fanfic on how this thing actually ended, but thank you guys very much for tuning in. You can follow me on Twitter and Twitch at Professor Thorgi. Come back next time. Bye.